So this video was originally going to be just a ride guide for Disney California Adventure, and then I realized it's really hard to do that without talking about Disneyland's rides and making some comparisons, and that's why I present to you the Disneyland Resort ride guide with all the things you should know about all of the rides in both parks and how they stack up against each other. So let's get started. Starting with something simple, the ride count. Now, this is info that is actually quite handy if you're trying to decide on which park you want to go to or which one you want to spend more time at. The rides in each park don't compare apples to apples. Now, what does that actually look like? Let me show you. First, let's start with the total ride count. Now, total ride count can vary since rides can be closed down for refurbishment or even total revamps. There's also new rides coming in that get added from time to time. Disney California Adventures Park total ride count sits around 19, where Disneyland Park sits around 36 rides, depending on how you count the Main Street vehicles. Considering you pay the same price per ticket for either park, you most definitely get more rides for the cost at Disneyland proper, but that's not everything you need to consider, so let's dig deeper. Let's talk any height rides. These are the kind of rides that no matter how tall or what age person is, they can ride the ride. This is especially important if you have a group with a wide range of ages and heights, or you have little ones with you. Disneyland Park has around 26 any height rides, and many of those rides are Disneyland classics. So let's see what those rides are.
Fool him, I did, by gum. Sir tell you once, Captain Jack Sparrow, you'll never find the treasure.
And DCA only has 9 any height rides, and I'm gonna be honest with you, a large portion of those are spinning rides. Let's see what those rides are.
Genie's gotta go now. Sleep tight.
On the opposite side are the rides that are a bit more thrill rides, that are going to be more of a hit with the big kids and those who like to feel the wind in their hair and need to yell or scream. These kind of rides will require riders to be at least 40 inches tall to ride them. Many of these rides are the more popular rides in both parks. DCA has around 8 more thrilling rides, including the biggest and fastest roller coaster at the resort, a large drop ride for those who are terrified of falling, a few thrill rides for the kiddos, and what I would say is probably one of the most popular rides in the resort that can only be found at Disney California Adventure Park in California. These rides are
Hold on! 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
We're now standing in my private office.
I know.
Right.
Carefully scrutinize each and every piece that comes to me from different parts of the galaxy. And after let's mute this guy.
Hearing you insist blathering on a constant loop was big motivation for me to escape. I go, ouch! Ow! What was, that was not part of the plan.
What? Of course I escaped.
need to look bad. It's now. Get on there. Oh, Lord, right from your life.
Plus, with a bunch of those rides, you get amazing blackmail pictures. Disneyland will only have 7 thrill rides once Tiana's Bayou Adventure is finished, but they are all very popular rides.
The future. I will lift the curtain of time. It is your destiny.
Not the captain, I am C-3PO.
201, clear for takeoff. Contact departure on frequency 14.
Wait! R2-D2, I am not programmed to fly these things. Now just turn us around this instant before we get into trouble.
Good. Shouldn't you be in flight prep? Recruits, thank you for joining the cause. The covert resistance team, led by my friend Finn, has infiltrated a first-order Star Destroyer that is now headed to this system. Your outpost on Batu is no longer safe. We have transports waiting to take you to General Organa's secret base on Bukhara.
You chose the wrong side, and now you will pay. The resistance prisoners.
You have what I want.
Tell them it's a prisoner transfer.
Blaster, now's a good time. The escape pods deployed!
Wait, Sneaky. Your precious resistance is about to be destroyed.
The resistance base is secure. Bravo! Yes, R5, you too.
And while these Disneyland rides are classics and great rides, DCA tends to win out with teens and thrill seekers alike, due to there being more thrill rides and the rides being more thrilling. Next, let's talk wait times, as in how long are you going to be waiting for rides if you don't have a lightning lane pass or anything like that. Of course, there are factors that will affect wait times, like season, or if there's an event or holiday that makes the park super busy, or if that park has early entry for Disney property hotel guests. If you're interested in the events that will cause bigger crowds, as well as my crowd predictions for 2024, you can check out these two videos that I've made. Besides overall crowd levels, there's a couple of other things that can affect ride wait times, like how big the park is, which means the bigger the park, the more spaced out the crowds are, which means you get lower wait times. How many rides the park has will affect the wait times as well. More rides in the park equals less waiting time. How many people fit per vehicle and how many vehicles ride on the track each round makes a huge impact on how fast lines move. If a ride offers lightning lane, we'll always raise the wait times for the standby lines in that ride, especially as the day goes on and more lightning lanes are redeemed. Even the size of the queue space will affect waiting times. The more queue space there is to walk through and wait in, the shorter the wait times will be. Because of all of these factors, you will generally see shorter wait times overall in Disneyland proper. The wait times are a little bit more predictable as well in Disneyland. Of course, Rise of the Resistance will consistently be the longest wait time in Disneyland, averaging a standby wait time of 45 to 60 minutes on less busy days and 65 to 120 minutes on busy days. Besides that, the average wait time for most rides in this park will sit somewhere between 15 and 45 minutes on a typical day. Now, DCA is another story entirely, since California Adventure Park has less rides and half of those rides are lightning lane rides, plus the frequent temporary closures that they have, which we'll talk about in a moment. The wait times in this park can get up there and fast. The most surprising of which is the Monsters, Inc. ride, which can easily boast a 45-minute wait on most days. Not because it's the best ride ever, but because it offers lightning lane for a ride that already has a low rider capacity and an overall queue setup that just kind of sets it up for a monster of a standby line, if you catch my drift. It's crazy that I'm saying this, but the only way to avoid a long standby line for Monsters, Inc. is to rope drop it in the morning and get it in like the first hour or two. Now let's talk about Radiator Springs Racers, a very, very popular ride that will always have the longest wait in the park no matter what. It's very rare to see a wait time for standby less than 45 minutes. If it's 45 minutes, jump in that line because it's not getting any shorter than that. Overall, you'll usually see the wait time sitting around 65 to 120 minutes for this ride on any given day. In the Paradise Gardens and Pixar Pier area, ride waits are usually less than the rest of the park, with 5 to 35 minute waits, although on busy days the Incredicoaster and Midway Mania will get up to 60-minute range. The other lands in this park are a little tricky because they only have 2 to 3 rides in each land. So if one ride closes, the other rides get super busy. For that reason, the rides in those areas will usually sit around 20 to 50 minute wait most days. DCA is a very hard park to predict wait times for, which makes it tricky to make rope dropping plans for this park as well. We'll talk about that in just a moment. If you're wanting to skip the wait in the standby lines, you have a couple of choices with most of the park's most popular rides. The first option comes with no extra cost, and that's using the single rider line. Not every ride offers single rider, but if a ride does offer it, you can use that line to skip the longer waits. The only catch is it relies on there being random open seats, and you're almost guaranteed you won't sit with anyone from your group. But if it's a super busy day, it can really pay off. It also can be super handy if there's just 2 of you and a small child or a couple of small children. then you can just take turns swapping and taking single rider to do some of those bigger rides. The rides that offer single rider are Radiator Springs Racers, Web Slingers, Soarin', Grizzly River Run, Goofy's Sky School, and the Incredicoaster for DCA. So even though DCA can often have longer waits, it also offers single rider on many of its rides. In Disneyland, you'll see single rider at Space Mountain, Matterhorn bobsleds, and Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, so far less single rider options at Disneyland proper. You also have the option of purchasing Genie Plus for around $30 a day per person per day to get the privilege of skipping standby and only waiting a few minutes to hop onto any of the participating rides. To be able to do this, you will need to use your Disneyland app often to book your Lightning Lane time frame, and you'll be scanning your tickets at the entrance of each ride that you use Lightning Lane on. So make sure your phone is charged if you're going to do this. You also need to be smart with how you use Lightning Lane. You can only use Lightning Lane once per ride and can only have one ride booked at a time. So if you book a ride for later in the day, you won't be able to book another ride until you scan into that ride. Does this make sense? So plan those times wisely. Just note that Genie Plus will help you skip lines, but it will control your entire day. The rides that you can use Genie Plus Lightning Lane on include, in Disneyland, Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters, Space Mountain, Star Tours, Autopia, making Tomorrowland the land with the most Lightning Lane options in the entire resort. The Matterhorn, It's a Small World, Roger Rabbit Cartoon Spin, Minnie and Mickey's Runaway Railway, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, Indiana Jones, The Haunted Mansion when it reopens, and for now, Pirates of the Caribbean, although that will probably be removed once the other rides reopen, giving Disneyland around 13 Lightning Lane options. Over in Disney California Adventure Park, you have about 9 options for Lightning Lane. These are Web Slingers, Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, Monsters Inc., The Little Mermaid, Goofy Sky School, The Incredicoaster, Toy Story Midway Mania, Grizzly River Run, and finally Soarin' over the world or California depending on the time of year.
Nice work, pal. Soon you will be airborne. So if you or your little aviators have a fear of flying or of heights, you might want to wait for your party at the arrival gate.
Now if you want to skip the line at Radiator Springs Racers or Rise of the Resistance, then you'll need to buy an individual Lightning Lane for just that ride. Those usually cost around $20 per person and will let you skip the line for that ride just once. Just a quick reminder to like this video if you find it helpful or you just liked it, and you want to support a hardworking lady out like myself, or you can just subscribe to my channel as well. And I thank you for all your support. Now, just to do a quick recap of what we've learned so far, Disneyland has more rides in general, more kid-friendly rides, you get more bang for your buck with Genie Plus, and DCA offers more thrill rides, more single rider rides, and it's a smaller park, so it's a little bit easier to get everything in. Okay, time to talk rope dropping. This means you're showing up at the park before its official open time, so you can be standing at the ropes to the various different lands, and then the park welcomes you and everyone rushes to their favorite ride. The crowds at rope drop can look intimidating, but they spread out quickly. The first 2 hours of the day at both parks are always the calmest and when you'll see the shortest wait times for all the rides. Now, for some rides, that means a total walk-on or just a 5 to 10 minute wait. For other rides like Radiator Springs and Rise of the Resistance, it usually means at least a 30 to 40 minute wait, but it will be shorter than later on in the day. If you do want to rope drop those two rides, you'll want to check your app first and make sure they're up and going, because those rides can take a moment to get going and sometimes they're closed first thing and they are far away from other rides, so if you're surprised with a closure, you're kind of stranded and like 2 steps behind everyone else at that point. People strategize rope dropping in a lot of different ways. The main ways are trying to get as many rides in as you can before the crowds stumble in, try to get as many popular rides in as possible, or trying to catch your personal favorites before the wait times go up. One's not better than the other, it's just what your preference is. There are a few things to consider to get the most out of your rope dropping morning. First of all, if that park has early entry for Disneyland hotel guests, naturally the park that is having early entry will be busier due to that. In a perfect world, you can check the app for what days are early entry for what parks, and you book your park at the one that does not have early entry that day. Second, the lands with the most rides in one land are awesome to rope drop because you can hop on a lot of rides in a short amount of time with minimal walking. Usually you can ride every ride in the land in the first hour or two, getting anywhere from 6 to 10 rides in first thing in the morning. Those lands are going to be Fantasyland and Tomorrowland for Disneyland, and Paradise Gardens and the Pixar Pier area for DCA. Lastly, there are a few rides that will take up a big chunk of your rope drop morning that you may not want to rope drop if you're trying to get more than 2 to 3 rides in during that magical part of the day. Those rides are going to be Pirates of the Caribbean, mostly because the ride itself is so long and it's bound to wipe out at least 20 minutes, even if it's a 5-minute wait. Plus, the wait usually isn't very bad later on in the day, so you really don't need to rope drop it. Then there's Indiana Jones and Rise of the Resistance. Both of those rides have pretty long waits even early in the morning. And then over in DCA, Radiator Springs will eat up your morning, and depending on the day, Guardians can be surprisingly busy as well and take up the morning. Truthfully, there's a lot of ways you can rope drop Disneyland proper to maximize your day, but for me, if you're trying to maximize your day at DCA and reduce waiting and getting everything in, I would rope drop Pixar Pier and the Paradise Gardens area, and then either use Single Rider or Genie Plus to get in the rest of the rides with minimal waiting, because rope dropping any of the other lands can be a huge gamble. I also would really like to talk about wheelchairs and EVCs. Disney parks are quite accommodating when it comes to trying to make entertainment available for everybody. First of all, if you have someone who isn't able to ride a ride or can't wait in a physical line, you have the option to rider swap. This is done in a lot of different ways and depends on the ride and why you need to rider switch, so asking a cast member at the entrance of the ride is best to make sure you're doing it correctly. There are a few rides that I would call completely wheelchair friendly, allowing you to take your wheelchair or EVC directly on the ride. Those rides are the Jungle Cruise, the Disneyland Railroad, the monorail, any of the carousels, the Finding Nemo subs, and the Mark Twain riverboat. Then there are a few that may require you to transfer from an EVC to a wheelchair to ride the ride. Otherwise, you can just stay in your wheelchair. These rides are It's a Small World, Astro Blasters, and Winnie the Pooh. The Little Mermaid and Midway Mania, as well as Monsters Inc. and Web Slingers. In fact, the only attractions that are completely unfriendly to guests in wheelchairs are the Main Street vehicles and the Columbia ship due to having to climb stairs. Besides that, all the other rides offer ways to get right up to the vehicle and transfer into it if that is possible for the rider. And please let me know in the comments below which rides you find the most or the least wheelchair friendly at Disneyland. And finally, let's talk about rides closing, either for refurbishment or temporarily. Rides being closed usually throws people off, and rightfully so. Here's what you need to know. If having no rides down for refurbishment is very important to you, you'll want to go to Disneyland July through December. This is when the park is usually at its busiest, and so Disney schedules the least amount of projects then. Because as you can imagine from watching all the footage of all these rides, they require a lot of upkeep and are sometimes due for new paint or an update from time to time. You'll see more rides closed down for refurb January through May, so plan on seeing some temporary walls and green scrims up during these times. Now, as far as temporary closures go, this is when a ride has to close for a little bit, usually because something isn't working right. The rule of thumb is the more elements to a ride, the more chances of it shutting down in a day. Rides like Mickey and Minnie's, Runaway Railway, Rise of the Resistance, Indiana Jones, the Cars ride, Web Slingers, even Luigi's are all super high maintenance rides and usually have at least one moment, if not several, closures in a day. The roller coasters are the other rides that will see temporary closures from time to time because they need to be safe and work properly. Some of the most simple rides close the least, like Jungle Cruise, Pirates, pretty much all of the Fantasyland rides, and the simple spinner rides as well. So here's the deal, if you are in line and the ride closes down, don't panic. You have some options. You can stay in line and hope the fix is quick, usually it's not. Or go and do something else and come back later when it's running again, because most rides will go back up again. Here are some of my ride closing tips. Number 1, don't go directly to the next closest ride. Everybody does that and it creates long waits and adds frustration on top of frustration. Number 2, you can just go to another land completely just to reboot. 3, go eat something. Sometimes a ride closing is my cue to go sit down, rest my feet, and eat before I get hangry. 4, go watch a show instead. Just like number 3, sometimes all you need is to sit down and watch a show to give you the right mood and energy to hit more rides. Better yet, go somewhere where you can eat and watch a show at the same time. And hopefully this video has given you some good energy and information that you need for your next Disneyland trip. If it did, feel free to show me some love in the typical YouTube ways. Thank you for watching and take care.